Today we're going to do a deep dive into the beginning of the story of Moses. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 2.
Okay.
And I think, this section of Exodus has always been so fascinating to me. Just all the twists and turns, and starts out and the Israelites are enslaved in Egypt, and then like this hero's about to emerge, but not in the way you might think.
Well, yeah, and the way the chapter kind of sets the scene, right, it reminds us of their plight under Pharaoh. Like their cries for freedom are going unanswered.
Yeah.
And it creates this tension and this anticipation right from the get-go. And it's against this backdrop that, the story of Moses begins.
Yeah, it really does feel like a powder keg about to explode,
Yeah.
And then we're introduced to this Levite woman, and she's got to make this impossible choice.
It's a choice that just speaks volumes about her faith and also her resourcefulness. Instead of just, succumbing to despair, she takes action. She weaves this basket, waterproofs it with tar and pitch, and just sets her baby adrift on the Nile. It's such a powerful image, full of risk and uncertainty.
Speaking of the Nile, it's more than just a river in this story.
Oh, absolutely.
It plays such a significant role in Egyptian culture.
For sure. The Nile was the lifeblood of ancient Egypt. A source of fertility, abundance, but it was also so unpredictable. It could give life, and it could just as easily take it away. And I think, in a way, it mirrors the situation of the Israelites themselves.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like, by placing Moses in the Nile, his mother is entrusting him to something much greater than herself.
Yeah, she's acknowledging the danger, but
Yeah.
she's also clinging to hope.
Yeah. And what's so incredible is that the Nile, this symbol of uncertainty,
Yeah.
becomes the very means of Moses' rescue.
Right, and by who? Pharaoh's daughter.
I know. It's crazy. It's like a twist straight out of a play.
The irony is palpable.
Right. It makes you wonder if it was just coincidence or maybe something more.
Yeah, that's a question that scholars have debated for centuries.
Yeah.
Was it fate or divine providence? But regardless, Moses is now being raised by the very person responsible for his people's suffering.
It's almost as if he's living a double life, hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
So how do you think growing up in the enemy's camp like that might have shaped him?
I think undoubtedly it created a unique and challenging environment for Moses. On one hand, he's immersed in the splendor and privilege of the Egyptian court.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, he's ethnically Hebrew.
Right.
And the text even suggests that he was aware of his true heritage. So you can imagine the kind of inner turmoil he must have experienced.
Oh, absolutely. It's like navigating two completely different worlds with different values and loyalties. That must have had such a profound impact on his worldview.
I think so. It makes that pivotal moment when he witnesses the Egyptian slave master beating a Hebrew all the more significant.
Yeah, that's definitely a turning point in this story.
It is.
It's a turning point, but it's also really morally ambiguous. Was it a justifiable act of rebellion, or was it just a rash decision?
Judging actions taken in a different time and context is never easy. On the one hand, you see Moses witnessing a brutal act of oppression, and he felt compelled to intervene.
Right.
But on the other hand, he did take a life, and he acted as judge, jury, and executioner.
It does make him seem like more of a flawed hero, though. Like he's driven by a strong sense of justice.
Right.
But he's also capable of violence.
Yeah.
And that complexity actually, I think, makes him a much more relatable and human character in a lot of ways.
I agree. It's important to remember that, we are viewing this event through the lens of our own modern values and our moral framework.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But regardless of the moral implications, the act has immediate consequences.
Of course.
Moses is forced to flee. He has to leave behind the life he knew. He was in the Egyptian court. He had the power. He had privilege.
And so his escape to Midian isn't just about evading punishment. It becomes this journey of self-discovery. Because he's stripped of his status, and he's forced to confront his true identity.
And this is where we see that recurring theme of water. Again, first the Nile, where he was both threatened and miraculously saved.
Right.
Now he finds himself at a well in Midian. Is there a deeper meaning to this?
I think so. Wells have this very rich symbolism across many cultures. They're not just sources of water, but they're often seen as places of encounter, refuge, and even renewal. They represent a transition point, a place where people gather, they share stories, and perhaps even receive divine inspiration.
It's so interesting how that well acts as a bridge between Moses' past and his future. Like he's leaving behind the world of the palace, he's entering this simpler life in Midian.
Right.
And yet it seems like fate has more in store for him.
It does, doesn't it? He finds refuge with Royal, the priest of Midian. He even marries his daughter Zipporah and has a son.
Wow.
It's a stark contrast to the opulence of Pharaoh's court.
And yet, despite finding peace and this new family, there's a sense that his story isn't over.
Yeah.
The chapter ends with God hearing the cries of the Israelites and remembering his covenant with Abraham.
Yeah, and that brings us full circle back to those opening lines about the suffering of the Israelites.
Yeah.
It subtly reminds us that despite his exile, Moses is still connected to his people.
Yeah.
You know, their fate is interwoven with his. There's a sense of destiny at play here, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It's like the calm before the storm. I mean, we've seen Moses' dramatic origins, his complex character, this flight from justice, but now something bigger seems to be brewing. And this is just the beginning of his story.
What a beginning it is.
I know. I can't wait to see what happens next.
I know. It really sets the stage for the extraordinary events that unfold in the following chapters.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're right on the cusp of something big, you know?
Right.
Here's Moses living this quiet life in Midian, seemingly far removed from everything that's happening with his people. But, like we just saw at the end of chapter 2, God is aware of their suffering.
Right.
And it feels like Moses is about to get drawn back into it all.
Absolutely. And this is where things take a dramatic turn. I mean, chapter 3 introduces one of the most, if not the most iconic scene in the whole Bible.
The burning bush?
Yeah, the burning bush. I mean, talk about an attention-grabbing moment.
It's such a powerful image.
Oh, yeah.
A bush engulfed in flames but not consumed.
Right.
It's such a clear manifestation of the divine just breaking through into Moses' everyday life.
It's no wonder he's drawn to it. I
Yeah.
mean, I can only imagine what must have been going through his mind.
Yeah.
He's just tending his flock, and all of a sudden, bam, he's confronted with this incredible sight.
Yeah.
And then God speaks to him directly.
It's a pivotal moment, not just for Moses, but for the whole narrative.
Right.
Because this is where God reveals his name, Yahweh, and he entrusts Moses with this monumental mission
Right.
to lead the Israelites out of slavery.
I mean, it's a huge responsibility, especially considering Moses' past. I mean, he fled Egypt as a fugitive,
Right.
and now he's being asked to go back and confront the most powerful ruler in the known world.
Yeah? Do you think any part of him wanted to just refuse? You know, stay hidden and safe in Midian?
Oh, I think that's such a human response.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the text reflects that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Moses questions his own abilities,
He does.
his own worthiness for the task. He even offers excuses.
Tries to back out?
Yeah, he's trying to back out of this huge, divine assignment.
Yeah.
And I think his reluctance honestly makes him even more relatable.
Right.
I mean, who wouldn't feel intimidated by a challenge like that?
Exactly. I mean, it's one thing to just sympathize with your people's plight.
Right.
But it's another thing entirely to put yourself in direct confrontation with Pharaoh.
Absolutely. And yet, amidst all of his doubts and fears,
Yeah.
God reassures Moses.
Yeah.
God promises to be with him every step of the way.
He does.
He even provides signs, empowers him with the ability to perform miracles.
Right.
And he even designates Aaron, Moses' brother, as his spokesperson.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not just about Moses' own strength or courage. It's about faith and trust
Yeah.
and surrendering to a power much greater than himself.
Right. He's essentially an instrument carrying out God's will.
Yeah, and that's a key theme throughout the Exodus narrative.
Yeah.
It's not just a story about human liberation.
Right.
It's a story about divine intervention in human history.
Okay, so Moses accepts his mission, maybe reluctantly,
Sure.
but he sets off for Egypt.
Yeah.
Talk about a tense homecoming. What happens when he finally confronts Pharaoh?
Oh, the confrontation is electric.
Yeah,
Moses, empowered by God, demands that Pharaoh let his people go.
right.
But Pharaoh, predictably, refuses.
Of course.
And this sets off a chain of events that just escalates the tension. You got the plagues, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, the growing desperation of the Israelites.
Oh, it's like this cosmic chess match. God and Pharaoh are making their moves.
Yeah.
And each one raises the stakes.
I love that analogy. And caught in the middle of it all
Yeah.
are the Israelites just longing for this freedom, but experiencing unimaginable hardship at the same time.
And that actually brings up an interesting point about the plagues.
Yeah.
Because they're showcasing God's power, obviously.
Right.
But they're also bringing suffering and chaos.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the pursuit of liberation,
Yeah.
there can be a cost, a price to be paid.
That's a really important observation.
Yeah.
And it raises these questions about the nature of divine justice, the role of suffering in the human experience,
Yeah.
the complexities of these liberation struggles.
Right. And then, of course, we reach the climax of this epic confrontation.
Yeah.
The Passover and the Exodus.
Right.
I mean, the angel of death passing over the houses marked with the lamb's blood, the parting of the Red Sea.
Such powerful imagery.
I know these images have captivated people for millennia.
Yeah, it's a pivotal moment in biblical history,
Yeah.
a turning point that marks the birth of a nation. The Israelites, led by Moses, escape from slavery, and they embark on this journey toward the Promised Land.
It's such a triumphant moment, but their journey is far from over.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
The Exodus is just the beginning of a much longer and much more challenging journey.
Right.
The Israelites now faced a new set of trials. Hunger, thirst, doubt, internal conflicts.
Oh, yeah.
They wander in the wilderness for 40 years,
Right.
and their faith is tested time and time again.
It's like the wilderness becomes a crucible.
Yeah.
This place where their identity as a people is formed through all these shared experiences, both hardship and divine provision.
Exactly. It's a period of spiritual formation.
Yeah.
A time for them to learn to rely on God,
Right.
to grapple with this newfound freedom and develop into this cohesive community
Right.
that can actually inherit the Promised Land.
And through it all, Moses is their guide, their leader, the mediator with God.
Right.
He receives the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. He intercedes on their behalf when they falter, and he points them toward their ultimate destination.
He's such a remarkable figure, isn't he?
It is.
This flawed hero, reluctant leader, but ultimately a transformative force in the history of his people.
And speaking of their destination, they do eventually reach the border of the Promised Land.
Yeah.
I mean, after 40 years of wandering, they're finally on the verge of claiming their inheritance.
They are.
But even at this crucial juncture, there's a twist.
Yeah.
And it honestly seems so unfair given everything Moses has endured.
Right. You're referring to the fact that Moses, despite leading the Israelites out of slavery,
Yeah.
he's not allowed to enter the Promised Land.
I know. That always gets me. Why, after all that, why is he denied entry?
Well, there are a lot of different interpretations of this.
Yeah.
Some view it as a consequence for a past transgression, a reminder that even the greatest leaders are subject to divine judgment.
Okay.
Others see it as a symbolic passing of the torch,
Okay.
a recognition that the era of Moses is ending, and a new era, led by Joshua, is about to begin.
So not so much a punishment, but more of a symbolic transition?
I think so. It's about letting go, acknowledging that even the most exceptional leaders have limitations,
Yeah.
and allowing a new generation to step forward and claim their destiny.
It really adds another layer of complexity to Moses' character.
Absolutely.
He's not just a liberator,
Yeah.
but he's a teacher, a mentor.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he understands the importance of stepping aside when the time is right.
I think so.
It all kind of culminates in this poignant scene, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Moses ascends Mount Nebo. He looks out over the Promised Land that he will never enter,
Yeah.
and then he dies.
It's a bittersweet ending,
It really is.
full of fulfillment, but also longing.
Yeah,
But it's such a powerful image,
it is.
Speaks to the transience of human life, the inevitability of change,
Yeah.
the enduring legacy of those who dedicate themselves to a cause greater than themselves.
Right.
Moses may not have crossed the Jordan River, but his impact on his people, on history, and our understanding of leadership is undeniable.
What a powerful way to frame it. Moses' story is really a testament to the enduring human spirit, the struggle for freedom, and the hope for a better future.
Absolutely.
It's a story that continues to resonate with us thousands of years after it was first told.
And I think one of the reasons it resonates
Yeah.
is because of its complexity. It
Yeah.
doesn't shy away from the difficult questions,
Yeah.
the moral ambiguities, the
Yeah.
moments of doubt and despair.
It does.
It shows us a flawed hero who's relatable,
Yeah.
but who, despite his imperfections, achieves something extraordinary.
It's a reminder that leadership isn't about perfection.
Right.
It's about having the courage to step forward, even with our imperfections.
Yeah.
And trying to do what's right.
I think that's what makes stories like Moses' so enduring.
Yeah.
They remind us that leadership isn't about being superhuman.
Yeah.
It's about using our strengths, acknowledging our weaknesses,
Yeah.
and working together to overcome obstacles and create a better future.
Well said. Well said. It is amazing how a story like this, passed down for thousands of years, can still feel so relevant today.
It really is.
I mean, we journeyed with Moses all the way from infancy to leadership.
Yeah.
We've witnessed his triumphs and struggles.
His humanity.
Yeah. But before we wrap up, I'd love to go back to something we touched on earlier. Moses' very unique upbringing,
Okay.
raised in Pharaoh's court, then living this simple life in Midian.
Yeah.
How do you think those contrasting experiences shaped him as a leader?
That's a really fascinating question. It's almost like he received two completely different educations
Yeah.
that each prepared him in a unique way for the challenges he would face later.
Right, so it's not just like the skills of a ruler
Yeah.
that he might have picked up,
Right.
but also an understanding of the human side of power, the temptations and consequences.
Exactly. He would have seen firsthand how easily power can be abused,
Yeah,
how those in authority can become detached from the needs of the people they govern.
yeah, yeah. And then his time in Midian provides this stark contrast.
Right. Living as a shepherd, far from the grandeur of the court.
Right.
He likely developed a deep sense of humility, patience, and connection to the natural world.
It's like those years in Midian were a necessary grounding,
Yeah,
this counterbalance to the more worldly education he received in the palace.
I agree.
Do you think it was in Midian where he developed that sense of empathy for the suffering of his people?
It's certainly possible. Tending flocks, facing the challenges of a simple life,
Yeah,
probably brought him closer to the experiences of everyday people,
yeah.
including the hardships faced by the Israelites under Pharaoh.
It makes you wonder if those years of quiet contemplation, tending sheep under the open sky,
Yeah,
allowed him to reflect on the injustices he saw in Egypt.
it's possible.
Like maybe he was in that stillness of the desert that his sense of purpose solidified.
That's a beautiful thought. It highlights this really crucial aspect of leadership,
What's that?
the ability to connect with the people you lead. Right.
To understand their struggles
Yeah.
and inspire them with a vision for something better.
It strikes me that Moses wasn't just this distant ruler issuing commands from afar.
Right?
He was deeply connected to the Israelites.
Yeah.
He shared in their suffering and their hopes, and ultimately in their journey towards liberation.
Exactly. And I think that's what made him such an effective leader.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a strategist or a military commander.
Right.
He was a shepherd, guiding his flock
Yeah.
through this incredibly challenging terrain, offering comfort, and ultimately leading them toward the promised land.
But let's be real, he wasn't a perfect leader.
Of course not.
I mean, he had moments of doubt, anger, even disobedience.
Right. How do we reconcile those very human flaws with the huge task that he accomplished?
Well, that's the beauty of the story, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't try to shy away from the complexity of its main character.
Right.
Moses' flaws make him more relatable.
For sure. More human.
Yeah, they remind us that leadership isn't about perfection.
It's about having the courage to step forward, even with our imperfections, and striving to do what's right, despite them.
And isn't that such a powerful message, especially today?
Right.
We put leaders on these pedestals and expect them to be flawless.
Yeah.
But they're human just like us.
Yeah.
They make mistakes, they face challenges, and sometimes they fall short.
And that's what makes stories like Moses's so enduring.
Yeah, they remind us that leadership isn't about being superhuman.
Right.
It's about using our strengths, acknowledging our weaknesses,
Mhm.
and working together to overcome all these obstacles and create a better future.
So well said. And for you listening, as you reflect on this incredible story, think about this. What experiences in your own life, even the seemingly small ones,
Yeah.
might be shaping you for a role you haven't even imagined yet?
Right.
A purpose that's still unfolding. Like Moses, maybe you're being prepared for something extraordinary. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep exploring the ancient stories that still resonate with us today.